Today, it's Edwin's Monday evening property rant. Hello again, it's Martin North from Digital Finance Analytics. Welcome to our latest post covering finance and property news. It's Monday, and I have Edwin with me once again. Hi, Edwin, how are you doing?
Martin. When is the media going to hit us?
And I assume you're not talking about my dog.
No. I'm talking about the outer space one. You know, where all the aliens are going to come in and take over the world.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what, talk about taking over the world. You notice that they've now opened the gates to Kiwis to come over and get Australian citizenship. So yet another injection of, permanent residents and into Australia. I'll tell you what, the Labor government's opening every single facet that you could possibly think about to try and bring more people into the country. Big Australia squared.
Yeah, that's right. Look, the thing is, Martin, that you and I discussed these things before, right?
Yep.
And we raised a number of the levers that they were going to pull. I mean, it looks like the Albanese government are just pulling every single lever that is out there all at once. But just going back to your point there about the New Zealanders, the 400,000 New Zealanders that are just going to walk straight into citizenship. I mean, look at the price of the eggs, Martin. Come on. Why wouldn't you want to leave New Zealand? You got no jobs. You got the economy is absolutely going down the gurgler. The price of eggs are $18.70 a dozen, and they're not even free range eggs. I mean, give me another reason other than the fact that all we're doing now, right, is, this is in Dusty's opinion, right, and I sort of partly agree with her, is that we're just reclaiming the state of New Zealand back into the fold.
Well, yeah, the Kiwis would have a very significantly different view, but of course their interest rates are a lot higher. So in New Zealand, the governor there has declared that he is trying to cause a recession because he needs to actually get supply and demand in equilibrium. What do we do in Australia? We have an RBA review.
Well, didn't we say that the politicians were going to meddle? A lot of people on Twitter and on every other social media platform, and all the online economists were saying no, the government's there's shades, a little bit of shenanigans here and there, but it'll never happen. The government will not take control. Come on. Everything went out the door in 2020, February 2020. Everything went out the door. We just can't think of the old economic policies or what would you call it? The economic ingredients that would shape the future of the nation. I mean, everything is just so controlled. The question is, Martin, who is controlling us? Who is controlling us? And now, of all things, I'm hearing, I haven't read much about it, but the Albanese government's also greenlighting some more weaponry or some more throwing more money at the war machine. And I mean, who are we going to defend ourselves against? Papua New Guinea?
Well, that's right. Another sort of 18 to 20 billion, I think, is what they're now talking about. So, and of course, the other side of the government said that's not enough. We should spend more. But it is a really interesting question. Yes, precisely who are we defending against, and on what circumstances? Unfortunately, they are following the playbook of other Western economies in so many ways, and even down to the RBA and the RBA review. What they're now saying is, they'll meet less frequently. They'll hold a press conference. They'll try and be a bit more open and transparent. They'll have a separate decision-making committee with regard to interest rates. I'll tell you what, all of those things have been in place in a number of other Western governments around the world for quite some time, made no difference. So this is not going to actually change anything. But what they did do was to remove the Treasurer's ability to be able to interject and question monetary policy, which is fascinating because, of course, that was one of the tenets that was put in place some years ago, that essentially the central bank is not completely outside the realm of political influence, whereas now they're trying to make it so. But I have to say, who ultimately is accountable? for the RBA and what they do. And if you go back to who's pulling all the strings, well, you could argue, I think, that central banks around the world, in their sort of cozy cartel approach, are really pulling a lot of strings, whether it's central bank digital currency, whether it's interest rate policy, whether it's chasing inflation. None of this necessarily is in the interests of ordinary Australians or ordinary people around the world. We lost the plot, and unfortunately, politicians are now wanting to back off and say nothing to do with us; it's all to do with them. I have a real problem with this. This is going majorly off the rails, and we've said previously, house prices are pretty radical where compared to incomes. Well, that's part of policy. So we need a different way of thinking about all of this. And I was very disappointed with the RBA review. No surprises, nothing really radical. And like I said, all the other central banks around the world continue to do this without any change of outcome. So I don't see we're going to see any difference. So I made a post the other day called Operation Blancmange, and I think that probably about sums it up.
I haven't watched that video yet, Martin, but look, there's a lot of stuff going on that, like you said, it's not in the interest of the people. It's not in the interest of the people that they're meant to serve, and really we're taking for their little joyride. How far it takes us, I don't know, but I'll tell you what, this train's going to derail sooner than later. Yep. And when it does derail, it's but look, unfortunately, you and I know that things aren't broken as yet. The things are wobbly, but they're not broken as yet. And all these things, all these policies, and all these new ways that the government's finding of how to control, how to manipulate the economy, the property markets. Who gets in, who doesn't get in. I mean, it's just short of a revolution. What's going to fix it, Martin?
We need that meteor. That's the only way to fix it, right?
It needs to be broken. I mean, just going back a little bit to who are we going to be? Who are we securing ourselves against? I mean, we want to trade with China, right? And what's it all in aid of? Who's really meant to be our enemy when you've got the state leaders going over to China, and also isn't the WA Premier saying that wants to hold some special meeting for a lot of the Australian delegates to go to have the meeting over there? I mean, we know that maybe this is just what Dusty tells me. Maybe we got to strengthen our borders down in the south against Victoria, because that is a captured state. So look, this is Dusty's theory, not my theory. Maybe we're really just going to be protecting. Albert lives in New South Wales, right? And his properties are here in New South Wales. Maybe we're just going to create this border around New South Wales, and even shrink that to just up, past up to Lithgow, and secure these borders, and the rest can, go to their master that currently owns it. I guess, I don't know. This is just Dusty's thoughts, right? Not mine.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, of course, we had borders through COVID, so maybe people have got quite excited by the idea of excluding other parts of Australia. I don't know. Of course, WA has always wanted to secede anyway. So
yeah, look, but with all this, only now the mainstream and people are reporting what you and I have been talking about for a while now, and we said that. And the WeChat chatterers have been warning us, and that is, they're only now just finding out that they're seeing a lot of Chinese people or WeChat chatterers out there on the open for inspections, and having a lot of interest in property. But also coupled with that are the Indians that have come in, and these are people that are very well educated, that have come over from India and other parts of the world, outside of directly from China. But we're going to talk as to what's happening with the WeChat chatterers in China, what they're reporting, which is rather interesting. But outside of that, we've got the local WeChat chatterers have really gone out, and it's only now that I guess the mainstream have picked it up because of the chatter amongst the real estate agents, that they're seeing a growth in interest from the Asian community. But a lot of people don't realise that the Asian communities that they're seeing out there are locals. The locals that you and I have been reporting about for a while now, since the beginning of last year. That the local Chinese communities have turned their back on the traditional methods of investing that they would find secure, safe and secure. because obviously the lockdowns and the pandemic and the amount of money that they lost through the hospitality industry and the retail. And now they're putting the money into homes that again, we got to be very careful not to stand toe to toe with the Wichachara's, because what they do to homes is not necessarily what your traditional Aussie buyer does with a home. They rent every inch of space in the property. But look, that's yeah. So when is this meteor going to come, Martin? That's all I can say. And then we've got reports of that I don't know, it bypassed us at the beginning of the year, and this is from a report in the Sydney Morning Herald published in 3 months ago, where it talks about Sydney, there's a particular Sydney suburb basically in Millers Point, in that area there is they're reporting to have over 164,000 vacant homes or vacant properties. A lot of them would be Airbnb, of course, but there's also a lot of vacant properties in that area. Yet rents are going through the roof.
Yeah, it does seem weird. And just to be clear, we're talking obviously about room rentals when it comes to some of those rental processes that are, unofficial. Somebody sent me a note the other day saying, is room renting legal? And the short answer is, well, it rather depends on how you define legal, but I can tell you that a lot of people are doing it, as we've discussed. And that statistic about the empty suburb, 1 in 3 homes is empty, I think that's very significant. And, I've been saying for a long time, Edwin, that vacant properties across the country are a very significant issue. And in certain suburbs, a lot of properties are vacant. Quite often, property investors have bought them, particularly perhaps overseas investors, deliberately holding them vacant, because what they don't want to do is to start devaluing them. And if you have people living in them, then obviously things wear out and, the value goes down. So they're just sitting there vacant. And Docklands has been the archetypal example in Victoria, where a lot of property is vacant. And I think that there are some very important questions here about these vacant properties, and one, exposing them, so we actually know how many there are, because I'm not sure that people are actually fully across them. And secondly, you need to categorize them, because obviously there are some which are second homes and there are some which are vacant because people are moving from A to B. But the long-term vacant properties that are held vacant deliberately is an area that should be being explored, but nobody wants to touch it.
Yeah, look, and there's a lot of things. Interestingly, only this last week, I sat down with a local agent that was asking me about if I had what I had on our books with regards to because obviously I'm traveling around and I know a lot of agents all over Sydney. If I had anything for one of his clients over in Hong Kong that wants to park some money over here. And this is where a lot of these people do, Martin. It's from overseas, not only from mainland China, from all parts of the world. They've parked their money here. They've parked their part of their wealth here, and under companies, under trusts, and for one reason or another, whether it be to wash money, there's been a lot of reports, even in the mainstream that have been shared of late, of how they're trying to tighten the rules and regulations around foreign investors that are trying to use Australia as a money laundering haven, because there is an appetite, and it should really extend not only to that to the real estate agents and to the lawyers, as to most of these articles are referred to as being called in to give notice, but that notice should also be given to the politicians that bring these bloody bastards in the first place. So there's a lot that can be said, and there's a lot of properties that are, as you're saying, that are vacant for various reasons. But I know a lot from the mainland Chinese community are held vacant because for fundamental reason that you mentioned, and that is that they believe that once it's occupied, it's no longer new, and it doesn't have the inherent value that it would otherwise have if it's a brand new, although it may be in an older block, but it's a property that's never been lived in. So, what their beliefs are, what they're not. The bottom line is there's a hell of a lot of vacant property out there, and something needs to be done. And also, you've also raised in the past the issues with the Airbnb. And so in this particular article it notes Miller's Point and those areas there that there's a lot of Airbnb properties available, but it's the trend, Martin. And I guess whilst people are not traveling overseas for the holidays, they're from Australia. They're basically still touring around the main cities and traveling interstate, and that's where a lot of these Airbnb accommodation type properties become more profitable than a typical long-term rental scenario, and they can, for now, they can maintain the mortgage repayments if there's a loan against them, because if you go back to a normal standard lease agreement, well, the interest rates are going to run away on you.
Well, that's right. And there's an interesting question here about free markets, right? So people should possibly be free to do with what they want to do with their property. And we saw through COVID, for example, when people couldn't get Airbnb type accommodation, they then switched to longer term rental agreements with people, so to get some income. But then, of course, once things eased up, then they went back to the Airbnb type story. And we're seeing quite a lot of those at the moment that are actually, as you say, getting enough income from Airbnb to be able to cover the mortgages. But of course, all of this is in the context of housing shortages and housing unaffordable for many people. So there has to be a broader picture here, I think, as well. And interesting, here in the UK, some councils are now limiting the number of Airbnb properties that are available and accessible in a particular area. And there are rules and regulations, and one of them is you have to register it, and the other is you have to actually have appropriate approvals to do it. So you just can't do it off your own bat. So there's an interesting tussle between private enterprise and free will of individuals versus the broader community interests. And I guess it's always been that way, but it is interesting how it's rattling on. Now, you mentioned WeChat chatters a little while ago. And of course, one of the things we're seeing is a lot now of moves, right, from, travel groups, local Chinese groups and mainland Chinese agents. It's interesting that they're now talking about big developments and getting people interested in them. This is a big move.
Yeah, look, it is, and this is firsthand information from an actual manager of an agency here in Australia, albeit based in Victoria. And he manages a big agency, and basically what they do is they specialize in bringing large groups of workers directly to work in specific sectors, and they monitor those workers. Now, we know that it's very difficult to come on your own from mainland China as a worker, because it's not. There's a lot of issues around it. We won't go into too much detail. But these groups, look, these organisations, these groups are basically backed up by the Victorian government and other state governments, supported by them, and also supported by the big wigs over in China. Because without the right connections, you can't do this sort of shit. I mean, we're talking about bringing 50, 60, 100 individuals to work on a project, whatever that may be, agricultural, construction, or whatever, in one lot. So we're going to see a lot more of this. Now, this is first-hand information, Martin. So this is from an individual that we've been trying to help to buy. That's that is a citizen of Australia, and this is what he's involved in. This is from him, right? So we're trying to help him to secure a property, a development here in Sydney, and this is where you get the information from. So this is the chatter. So you sort of, as much as you want to be a conspiratorian, and you want to be you don't want to sound like a conspiracy theorist, but the question goes back to, why was Daniel Andrews in China, right? Why does McGowan want to go over to China? Why do all these politicians, state politicians, want to go over to China? And you and I have been talking about one of the needs and one of the ways to maintain the house values, but in particular around the high-rise development sector, because that is the appetite for the Chinese communities, is really to bring in investors from China, because the local WeChat chatterers, their appetite is not at the moment, is not in apartments. The ones that didn't sell and the ones that are still holding apartments, well, they've just got a lifeline by the mass influx of students, and they're able to partition those apartments once they get rid of the long-term tenants and basically carve them up into room and bed lettings, as we've discussed. So, but in the most part, if there's no appetite for overseas investors for apartments, the locals don't necessarily gravitate towards the high-rise developments, because we're across the landscape, we're across the information to make us weary to either invest or buy into as a long-term property or home, you could say, into this high-rise or badly built high-rise developments, right? So they need that, and so when you start putting these things together, when you start putting all these this chatter together, hence the reason why we call it WeChat chatter, is when you start putting all this together, you can only speculate and make these assumptions. I don't want to make an ass out of myself and you, but sometimes a lot of the assumptions that we've made over the years from the information that we've gathered from the WeChat chatters have come to pass and come to fruition. And look, but this is, how else do you save the construction industry, Martin? How else do you save? How else do you stimulate the construction industry so that we can go back to building individual lots, let's say between the 350,000 to 400, because to build an individual lot now, it would be upwards of 520, 540,000. That is one unit in a high-rise development. So those numbers have got to come down. The state governments, won the election on the promise that they were going to provide more accommodation to the younger generation, hence the reason why they got those votes. They were going to look after the workers, they were going to do all sorts of things, but none of that can come to pass unless costs go down and unless developers have the appetite to build again, because developers have really got no appetite to build unless they're going to make a minimum on a high-rise development. They're going to make a 17% return, let alone facing the banks that won't lend them unless that they can see a gross realization of about anything from 17, in some cases right up to 32 or 27% return. So they want to secure themselves as well. So with all the issues that are going on, they've got to really bring the costs down in order to get these apartments moving or built. And the only way to do that is to have higher demand for people to purchase off the plant, because that is what gives the banks that security to lend to the developers, and that circle then continues to start rolling, and we'll start to see this production. So at the moment, all we know and all we have is a deficit of about 75% of construction being built to even meet a small percentage of what the Albanese and the state government and the Minsk government have promised the states and the Australian community that they would be building. And no, I can't see that happening, not in the next 3 to 5 years anyway.
Well, that's right. So the point is, of course, that the number of new starts has dropped dramatically, and we discussed the other week about the fact that there are more builders falling over rather than actually building at the moment, which is a big problem. And the states will be pulling all the levers they can, and if they can bring construction resources from China and also maybe even captive investors from China to support the construction sector locally, then superficially that could be good for the politicians, but I'm not sure it's necessarily good for the community. And go on.
Sorry, Mike. Go on. And in that, Martin, the thing is that we don't have the workers, right?
Mm.
And this is why these groups of people are bringing them in. And yep. Look, I may say it. I say it, with my I don't know what you would call my sense of humour, but I say it in the humorous tone even on my posts on Twitter. But the migrants that are coming in, they're not coming into they're not coming in with, or have any inkling in working in the construction industry. They don't want to get their little, the manicured hands dirty. That they're looking for other aspirations of working in IT, finance, health, hospitality, anything but the construction industry. The construction industry is a hard industry to get involved in. I mean, the only thing that I could see right now is that the right move is the 400,000 Kiwis that are coming, Martin. They're good at formwork and scaffolding. They're used to the hard labor. But all these other darlings that are coming over from all over the rest of the world, they don't want to get involved in the construction industry. It's a dirty business. But you know what? The Chinese do. The Chinese are in it. The other thing that I put out on Twitter or somewhere, I was chatting to different people all over the place, is the fact that, look, it's basically taken the industry. It's taken us since 2014, 2015 till now. Eight years to, I would say probably 7 to 10 years to educate the Chinese groups that have come over or that have been working in the industry, to educate them to a point where it's acceptable to perform a specific task or trade, a task incorporating a trade within the building sector. Right, it's taken us this long because very rough. When this project started, these people came and started working in the building industry. They're very, very rough. So it's taken us this long to educate them to a standard that's somewhat acceptable. But now you've got a new tranche of people coming in, and we're basically going to start from scratch, let alone at least the Chinese migrants that came in to work in the industry, to work in the construction industry, that they by hook or by crook, they had no choice, and they wanted to get, and they got involved, and they went in boots and all, you could say. But this new 600,000 migrants outside of the New Zealanders, they don't want to get involved in the construction industry. So this is why I was saying we're in a, call it a quagmire, call it a conundrum, call it an impasse, whatever you want to call it. We're in the shit with construction, basically. We're in the proverbial shithole, and nothing's going to happen. This is what I say over and over again. This thing's got to break down and really break before it can be fixed. And I can't see any solution coming to light or coming to fruition for another 3 to 5 years, possibly closer to 5. Even if we start putting shovel to the ground right now, that project's going to be concluded for another 3 years, Martin.
That's right. Well, the lag, of course, is the key thing, right? And we are seeing that degrading of new approvals and new construction. Also, just highlight again, the quality is also going down as well. So I was talking to somebody the other day who's bought a new high-rise development very recently in Sydney, and they've already got, within 3 months, they've got defects that are coming to the surface, and not just superficial ones, but cracks in some of the walls and things. So the quality of the construction is also in question, I think, as well. And whilst it superficially might look flashy, when you've been there a little while, you start seeing the defects. So I mean, it's broken. The system is broken, but as you say, it's a slow burn. It's going to take some long time to to come out into the woodwork. But this is really bad news. Now let's go on, because there's another piece of interesting news. I would say another slow burn, and that is the ICAC raids on New South Wales Liberal members. Right, fascinating to see this happening, and again, questions being asked about some of the behaviours.
Well, look, I think what I highlighted there was it just says it all. Mr. Williams claimed several senior members of his party were paid significant funds to install new councillors in the Hillshire Council who would be friendly to a Sydney developer.
Yes, and that's why I brought it into the conversation, right? Because this political nexus between the states and the construction sector, and the way that corruption may or may not be working, is critical to understand. So it'd be interesting to see whether ICAC brings anything out. But and I know that some of the deals that have been done in recent years between developers and the councillors and the local MPs and local politicians, they're at the heart of this, there's a rottenness which needs to be exposed, because and I know that deals are being done below the waterline and money is changing hands, and unfortunately it's not to the benefit of ordinary Australians.
Yeah, look, I'm not going to name any names, but I've come across ex-politicians from both parties that sit the board of big development companies.
Yep.
So, I mean, I've had lunch with them. I've sat down with them. I've met with them over, when I've been talking to these development companies about, land acquisitions and the like, travel from down Wollongong all the way up to Newcastle with different, in my previous life with different projects and land proposals. And it's interesting when you get to sit with them in the boardrooms, and it's interesting to see who comes out who comes out one of the offices. But like I said, I'm not going to name names. Look, it's the same shit. Again, it's the same. It's birds, wings of the same vulture. So it's going to be. But these ICAC inquiries. You've got you've got the one party. You've got the foot to the floor on the brake. In the other party has got the pull the handbrake all the way to that the cable's about to snap. So, so they both don't want these inquiries to really move ahead, do they? It's
absolutely no, they don't. But maybe it will. And just going back to sort of complete the picture, there was another article, wasn't there, which highlighted the massive housing shortfall in New South Wales. The article said New South Wales needs to build 75% more homes than forecast over the next 5 years to keep up with demand. Now, I don't know whether that's right or whether it's wrong, but the fact is that we've got this massive influx of people. The supply of new properties is definitely degrading. We've got some vacant properties, but in the round, we probably have a problem. But then, of course, there's a bunch of issues. Red tape issues, for example, very hard to get approvals going. A lot of fees have to be paid to start up. And then you've got NIMBYism and your point, and it's just worth re-emphasizing. There's a long lag between deciding to do something and actually getting a shovel in the ground and getting a new building finished. Typically 2 to 3 years if you're lucky, maybe longer. So this is not going to get fixed anytime soon.
No, it's not, and it will all come back to what you and I have been talking about, what we've been reporting about for a number of years, and that is the red tape that sits within the realms of the councils. You could be in one council and you could have a block under 600 square meters, providing that it's has a frontage of 15.5 meters wide. You could build a duplex, and you've got another LGA where in order to have a build a duplex on it or break the block up, you need to have minimum 550 square meters per lot. So going for, and there's also setbacks and frontage sizes and the like. So there's so much red tape, but most of this is you've got the backup support by the NIMBYs, or the not in my backyard groups that have really created a rod for their own back, or they've created a cross that now they're going to have to carry, because now they're at an age where they're retiring and they can't downsize. And if they want to retire and downsize in the same community that they've spent the last 40, 50 years in, well, guess what? There's nothing to be bought. So in that same article that you're referring to, they talk about those issues. They talk about the state taking more control. I mean, the state's been in control of a lot of the transport corridors anyway, and they could bypass the local councils. There's a lot of chatter. All I see, Martin, is all I've seen for the last 3 to 6 months is a lot of chatter around this, but nothing's really being done, because prices are running away. In terms of cost of construction, they're running away. Victoria, they're saying that their tradies are going north. They're northbound because they're getting better monies. Then now you've got the issue with Queensland with the Olympics coming up, Martin. Every man in his box trailer is going to go with his tools, pack up his tools, and go over to Queensland to work there, because they're paying an absolute mozza. To get tradespeople there, because they got to get that built, and they got to get that built quick, right? So you've got all these issues. Hence the reason why we're going to see, I believe, plane loads again of groups from how they're going to organise it, I don't know the ins and outs. But what this this wannabe developer that's a migration agent from Victoria was telling us is an eye opener, and it's only a wait and see, and let's see how this chapter unfolds. But it's just more people coming, less being built, greater needs. I just can't wait until Albo starts opening the gates to PNG for permanent residency, and also to Tasmania. I mean, I'm just, those poor bastards down there in Tasmania. We got to open the doors for them soon as well, don't we, Martin?
Well, certainly Tasmanian properties are taking a bit of a bath at the moment. But let's look at the numbers anyway. So in Sydney this week and last week, almost no change. No surprise, you and I both believe that things were going to get a bit quiet now. The mix between houses and apartments, not dramatically different either, really.
No, they're not. And again, fingers crossed that the numbers don't retreat, any more than what they have to get us to this point. Fingers crossed that they don't, because there is, the demand is a lot higher, and right now what we see is the momentum of what we saw back in the winter of 2021 and moving into all the way to 2022. So fingers crossed that they don't retreat, Martin, and they stay at least at these levels. But let's see what happens and let's see what happens with any foreseeable rate rises, and anything, any pressure that, as you said, that the bank managers are putting on the mortgage holders to sell before things get a bit too hairy down the track.
Well, certainly rate rises are on the cards again, and those who were forecasting that RBA would cut rates very soon probably are misplaced. In Melbourne, interestingly, the numbers dropped last week to this week, not dramatically, but down a little bit. But I noticed that the number of houses relative to apartments has changed a little bit. We're seeing a lot of apartments hanging around.
Yeah, they are. But the difference between the house numbers are dropping, but the apartment numbers are staying the same. Then again, if you got greater choice in moving to a home, you do that rather than buying into a shitty built apartment, wouldn't you?
Yeah, there are plenty of those around. Let's just look quickly at the auctions. The auction numbers are still, wobbling around a bit, but nothing dramatic. And I saw a couple of reports claiming that the clearance rates were buoyant, but when I looked into it, I wasn't convinced. No,
and again, look, the clearance rates, as you and I say over and over again, they don't impress me at all. It's just percentages. It's when you start looking into the think tax of it, and the numbers don't for me, the actual number of transactions don't represent confidence still. No. In the vendors to go out and sell. The vendors are still weary. That conversation of price rises in a lot of suburbs is not there. Or it hasn't filtered through to the sellers as yet. One could also argue that the numbers are still relatively low because of the school holidays and the Anzac long weekend, albeit that Saturday's still open for business. We celebrate it on Tuesday, but it might have an effect on the upcoming auction. But I don't know. I just don't see the numbers reflective of a lot of confidence in the sellers. I think if there was a lot more confidence out there, we'd see a greater number of auctions. I mean, we're still down a bit. I think we're still down about 29%. From last year's same time last year, last year's numbers. So again, it's just a wait and see. And what is interesting, Martin, is I was reading up on some of the REA stuff, and they're reporting to there being 49,000 real estate offices across Australia, right? That's offices, and they're reporting 130,000 real estate agents occupying these offices. I think that's underreported. I think the number of real estate agents across Australia is closer to 200 to 230,000, maybe 250,000. As there's 57,000. So for me, the low volume sales, what stands out that the mainstream haven't really picked up on, again, you and I discuss it over and over again, is the sheer fact that that sooner than later the actual industry itself is going to be on its knees, because we're really heading back to 2019 scenarios where the offices were on the knees, because there's not a lot of transactions, not a lot of sales on a weekly basis going through. I think the average number of sales at the moment is 970 in Sydney, which is not a lot when you consider the fact that there's close to 17,000 selling real estate agents, albeit certificate holders as well as license holders. So there's not a lot of cake to go around, in other words.
Absolutely. Well, it's continuing what we saw the last few months, and no real change. Interestingly, Sydney rentals is around 10,000 properties for rent in Sydney at the moment. It's been bouncing around that sort of level. And the ABS published quite an interesting report today on the rentals and some rental trends. And they were highlighting the difference between the CPI and, new rents and those sorts of things. I'll probably do a separate show on that, because it's actually quite interesting. It's the first time the ABS has come out with a more detailed piece of analysis on the rental situation. But frankly, I'm not sure that they covered the criticality that they should have. There's not enough differentiation between types of properties, location, how far people are having to travel to be able to get somewhere. And I'm seeing a lot of people who are actually moving into other areas that are further away just to get a cheaper rental, but then having to pay a lot more for transportation. So you can't look at the rental costs in isolation.
No, and I mean the actual report put out by the Financial Review just says why most inner Sydney and Melbourne rentals are still cheap. Yep. And I mean they've purported to have surveyed somewhat 600,000 rentals, and they're so. But I mean, again, this as you say, and Tarek put up on Twitter, in inverted commas, by the ABS. This and says we'd be better off asking our Air Force to keep an eye on our submarines.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, yeah, I have to say that I wasn't totally convinced by their analysis, and certainly my own surveys, and we cover rentals, highlight the significant proportion of people in rental stress. That's a cash flow problem. Some of them are being forced to move from pillar to post. Others are actually having to pay significantly more. And I'm still seeing some increases of more than 20% being forced on people just to stay in the same place without being disrupted. And the duration, interestingly, of the average rental agreement is also coming down, because obviously now agents are quite keen to try and put a reset quicker. So all of those things show that the rental sector is still in a huge mess. And, like we said at the top of the show, with the Kiwis coming and the rest of the migrants, this is going to get worse and worse and worse, I fear. And nobody really wants to tackle the underlying issues, which, of course, is 20 to 30 years of bad policy and all the things we've been talking about many times. Now, I guess as we sort of come to the end of the conversation, your tip of the week, this is brilliant. Selling agents are not on your side. What?
It has to be said, Martin. Yeah. I'm going through a bit of a saga at the moment, right? Where we're trying to get access to, we're trying to get our building inspector as a third party to go and inspect the property. The agent is not indirectly refusing access, making it very, very difficult. And it's telling. I was at the open house on Saturday, and told a group of interested people, that was basically they should issue them with their building report. And just from my own observation, I posted some of the videos on Twitter of what I saw just on the fly. And we're very concerned about the water ingress issues in the subfloor area and what it's doing. I mean, to the point that they build a little waterway from inside the garage to take the water out from behind the walls, right?
It's a water
Yeah,
feature.
I mean,
It's a water feature.
yeah, I mean, look, I just got to be careful, when I walk around and do these inspections, because one of these days I'm going to get bitten by a gator or a piranha or something. I don't know. So it's just one of these things. So again, I just want to emphasize, guys, selling agents are not on your side. And look, and they're also not on the vendor side. Guess who they're acting for? They're acting for themselves. They're not like lawyers. They get paid more than lawyers, right? Get paid more than lawyers when you look at a per hour service arrangement. The pay is phenomenal in comparison to lawyers. At least the lawyers and solicitors, as much as we hate them, loathe them or love them, they have a duty of care first and foremost to the court, right? So outside of a duty of care, or outside of an allegiance to their client or to the other side, or respect to the opposing side, first and foremost, their allegiance is to the court. Whereas real estate agents, their allegiance is to themselves first and foremost, and by hook or by crook, you just can't trust them. So don't think that just because they hand you a shiny booklet that tells you that the property is in great shape and great order, that you're going to front up to the auction and get all emotional and pay $100,000 more than what it's really worth, because you don't know the issues that's down the line. So you get all emotional. They pay more for the property than what it's worth, because they get into this emotional frenzy at the moment with the low volumes. And then on top of that, you'll soon find out within months, if not weeks, you'll find out that you've got major issues in the subfloor area that's potentially going to cost you another $50,000, $70,000, $80,000, depending on how extensive the damage the damage is. So, yeah, the selling agents are not on your side, and they're not your friend.
No, absolutely right. And I think the very important point you've made there, Edwin, is that those agents are working for themselves, right? And there are some who are, I think, of good caliber and good character, but many will say anything, do anything to get a deal, almost at any price, because, frankly, they're not worried about maximizing the value of the property. What they're interested in is maximizing the probability of getting a sale at any price. And
a quicker sale.
And the quicker the better, and that's what they want. So it's about volume, it's about turnover, it's not about optimizing price for the vendor, nor indeed helping a purchaser to successfully complete a transaction. So, many people that I speak with through my one-to-ones still assume that the estate agent is working for them on both sides of the equation. So it's a bit of an issue.
Well, I'll tell you what we're going to do, Mike. Sorry, go ahead.
I just want to say my furniture has just arrived, so I'm going to have to break the show now. So I want to say thank you very much, and I will be back.
You'll be back with furniture.
Yeah, we'll see you soon, Edwin. Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.
All right, man. Ciao, ciao.